Let's start from the beginning because we have John here.
Yeah.
To just tell us the story. A lot of people don't know about what went down with Breonna Taylor. I'm sure many activists will just accuse you of lying. Mm-hmm. But at the very least, let's see, if you would like to, give us the breakdown of the story. I know you have a book about it, but you can just tell us what happened and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'll give you the 5,000 view story of it. Mm-hmm. So that night, we were asked to help.
What do you know the date specifically?
Yeah, so March 12th is when the briefing was. We didn't breach the door until March 13th, which is Friday night, full moon. I came out from the briefing and I had 2 flat tires. It started pouring down rain. I got soaking wet while I was moving my stuff from one car to the other. So everything was just kind of one of those nights.
Can you? What was the briefing?
It was we had 2 separate briefings. SWAT did their briefing because they were executing the warrants down Elliott. The guys who were assisting them that were going to do the searches were at our brief, along with us. All the houses that we were doing were on the board. They showed above it. Fortunately, I took a picture. It showed above it, no knock, no knock, no knock. It got to ours. It said knock and announce. So they had changed it. They were all signed as no knocks. So technically, we served a no knock warrant, but it was not served as a no knock. It was signed by a judge as a no knock. But once it did not fit the parameters of a no knock, we didn't serve it as a no knock. We did the thing we're supposed to do. We corrected it and didn't do it. So the only reason it was written as a no knock is because Jamarcus Glover's history. He had 5 felony pending cases for guns and drugs. He had ran from the police. And these were active cases, not including the ones he had already been charged with and pled guilty to previously for Mississippi and Louisville. And so once they realized they had a ping on his phone and a tracker on his car, they knew he would not be on Springfield. So they said, we're not doing that one as a no-knock because it didn't justify being a no-knock. He wasn't there. And they said, we think it's only Breonna Taylor at the house. We don't think there's any kids, no dogs, nobody else there with her. Okay, cool. They've been watching this house for a while, so I had assumed that their intelligence was good on the house, that it was just going to be Breonna Taylor. They said, she's a heavy-set black female. Give her time to come to the door. Give her more time than usual. Because normally it's about 10 seconds. You're banging on the door, police search warrant. If you don't hear anything, then you go ahead and hit it. So this one, when we went, we showed up, and we gave it 45 seconds to a minute. It was, I think, 6 different cadences of knocking on the door and yelling police search warrant. The first 2 were just regular knocks, hoping she would just come to the door, be quiet, the neighbors wouldn't know. After she didn't come, started banging open hand really loud, yelling police search warrant. The neighbor upstairs heard us, came out, argued with our guys. They kept telling him to go inside. He didn't want to go back inside. So finally he did. We hit the door. Once the door opened, I could see from right to left in the living room, and I was on the left of the door jamb. And Mike, the guy who did the ram, was on the right because you never stand in the fatal funnel in case somebody shoots through the door. So once the door came over, I scanned to the right to left. Everybody at this point yelling, police search warrant, police search warrant. When I turned the corner, I had to step right in the doorway just to see down this hall. And as soon as I did, there was an ambient light coming out from the TV down the hall. We had lights on our guns. As soon as I turned the corner, I saw 2 people overlapping each other. It was like a big blob, but with a tall head and a short head. And they were both down and this hallway's only maybe 3-4 feet wide at the most. So very narrow hallway because it had an inset where Kenneth was standing that goes into the next bedroom.
And that's Brianna's boyfriend?
Yes. It's her boyfriend at this time. And so as soon as my eyes got to Kenneth, I never even got all the way to Breonna, even though they were it was basically one person, but I never got to her face. As soon as I got to where Kenneth was, I could see the gun because of the flashlight. All I saw was the metal tip of the gun, and my brain was like, uh-oh, and boom, it was over. He shot.
He shot first?
Yes, he shot. I felt it hit my leg. I returned fire. I got 4 rounds off. Yeah.
Was the first shot fired? It hit you?
Yes.
So you open the door. Kenneth, do you know his last name?
Walker.
Fires 1 round, striking you in the leg.
Right.
And then the other officers return fire?
Correct. I fired 4. I got offline is what it's called. So boom, 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 real quick, 4 shots. Got behind the door frame, came around, shot 2 more. At that time, I felt my leg, realized there was a ton of blood. And I've seen, countless gunshot victims over 21 years. And a normal leg shot that doesn't hit an artery it doesn't bleed much. I mean, you might have a trickle of blood down your leg. That's it. Well, this one, as soon as I put my hand on my thigh, I could feel just a glob. And I was like, oh, man. And I announced at the door. I mean, everything happened so quick. So I got 6 rounds off in probably less than 2 seconds. I mean, it's how quick this whole exchange happens. It's over before you even realize what's going on. Training kicks in and you just react. So I remember yelling, it hit my femoral artery. And I sat down on my bottom because I thought, I'm going to pump the blood out. That's what I was thinking in my head. And as I did that, Miles stepped up and was shooting already. And I thought, I can't stay here. I'm going to get shot by crossfire. So I jump up and I hobble out and I fall between the cars. And my lieutenant comes up and they start working on me. I'm like, dude, I need a tourniquet. Get me a tourniquet. And they finally got one, got it on, and got the bleeding stopped. But at that time, people say, well, why was there so many shots fired? 12 Seconds in the Dark, the book, the title comes from the time that door came open until it was silent, from no gunshots. The chaos stopped. And that was about 10 to 12 seconds from what we've tried to reenact it and see. And so much happened, so much chaos, so many things go through your mind in that 12 seconds that it's just amazing how much damage can be done in that small amount of time and how much aftermath damage, the city, the country, the nation, from 12 seconds. And it's just, it's sad.
So you get out of there. Mm-hmm. You say you collapsed between two cars. What was the distance between the door and where you ended up on the ground with getting medical attention?
So I'll try to give you a visual of it. If you're looking at an apartment complex and they have the inside where the stairs go up to the top, you've got that little foyer area, which is maybe, 12 feet deep and 10 feet wide. That's where we were at.
This was ground floor, right?
Ground floor. Yeah. And so I was all the way on the inside. So I hobbled out of there, then a sidewalk, a curb, and then the length of a car. So I went down between the cars, but scooted to the edge of the cars. And that's when my lieutenant grabbed my vest and pulled me out and got to work. But the thing about Kenneth Walker, he keeps saying he didn't know it was the police. First they said nobody knocked and announced. Then he comes back later and goes, yeah, we heard him knocking. We heard him banging. And I thought it was her ex-boyfriend is what he said. So if you thought, but then he said he thought somebody was doing a home invasion. If you thought that, why would you have your girlfriend, they got up, got dressed, he retrieved a gun. Why would you tell your girlfriend, come in the hall with me?
I'd imagine if he thought it was her boyfriend. You know what I mean? Like they genuinely
thought
it was.
But if you're that scared for your life that you're
whatever.
willing to shoot, wouldn't you have her call 911? Stay in here and call 911. Get him over here.
I mean, it's a tough question about whether or not somebody wants to call the police to a situation that's about to get hot, whether they're even thinking about it, how someone reacts. I mean, you're talking about 12 seconds. They hear a big bang. It's about 45 seconds. I can't assume these people would react the same way I would. I can't assume they trust cops, to come and resolve the problem.
Right.
But more importantly, I mean, it's even fair to say they're not going to call the cops because they might be involved in illicit dealings or something. And so this is street justice.
That's probably more the case. So when they downloaded his phone after the fact, they found text messages in there with him and other guys. There's pictures of him with his gun, which is no big deal. Everybody can have a gun. But they had it also with a bag of pills that were probably fentanyl pills because they were the same little blue pills, weed, whatever. Nobody cares about weed. And so, but he was selling. There's text messages in there, him selling all this stuff to different people. That's irrelevant. The one that stuck out was the one where these other guys said, hey, do you want to hit this lick with us? And he said, well, how much is it worth? And they said, $20,000. And he was like, that's fine, but I always do my homework first. Meaning he sets up, watches people, see how they react.
Yeah.
And again, this guy didn't have a job. He was getting ready to start. One day it was UPS, the next day it was Postal. I don't know which one it was, but he was getting ready to start a job. That's always the case. Getting ready to get my life together. And so a lot of times what these drug dealers will do, they'll rob other drug dealers. That's just common practice. They won't report it to the police because what are you going to say? They stole my drugs and money. But the way they do it is they'll go up and they'll bang on a door and yell police. And when that door gets open, they've got a gun in and they rob them. That happens all the time.
You think that's what he thought was happening?
I don't know if that was his MO of previous cases that he had done. And so he thought, it's coming back on me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say because he's lied so many times. We don't know the truth.
There's the simple general circumstance, nuance excluded, that I've mentioned in the past, that if you're a law-abiding citizen, armed legally, and someone kicks your door in and you don't know it's the police, you have a right to defend yourself from perceived home invasion.
I agree.
Absolutely. There have been many stories I've seen, read about, or a couple at least, where plainclothes cops, are serving a no-knock warrant or something, and then they get shot, and the person ends up, going to prison or whatever. And I'm like, dude,
I think that's horrible. Yeah.
But
well, when you say plainclothes, let me correct this because this was a big sticking point on ours too. Because we were in what's called plainclothes. However, we had tactical vests on that said police across the front.
Yeah.
We had our badges on. 7 white dudes going to a black guy's house. It's just not the norm. That's going to go rob a drug dealer. It's just not. It doesn't happen. Go ahead.
I was gonna say let's move forward with the story a little bit and talk about the lies. So the big narrative that comes out is that Breonna Taylor was sleeping in her bed, and you guys just basically shot into the house willy nilly, killing her while she slept.
Yeah, the big thing
Not
was
true.
We came in the middle of the night, didn't knock, didn't announce, and killed her in her sleep. So she was sleeping before we got there. But Ben Crump's the one that kept pushing this she was asleep in her bed thing. Sleep over. He came out initially and said they even had the wrong house. They weren't even supposed to be there. And I'm going, oh my God, we've got the search warrant, but our city refused to put it out. I'm like, just show them the address and name on it. It's all you got to do. This doesn't hurt the investigation one bit.
You mentioned before that they were gentrifying the area?
Yes.
Something was going on with that. What was that about?
So down on Elliott, which is where Glover was at, where SWAT did the no-knocks, for years they had been buying up these properties. What they would do is they would go in and they would condemn them, buy them from the homeowners for $1 a piece. And so the city had taken the majority of that block. In 2000, I believe it was 18, they had the University of Kentucky's engineering department or architectural department draw up plans for this new vitalized area. And it looked nice. And you do want areas like that to be revitalized, but you've got to do it the right way. You can't just go in and bully people out of their houses and basically steal it as the government. I don't agree with that. So what they did was they sent a map out through their email, and it had the houses they already had marked off, and it showed the houses they needed to still get. So in January, they started this new unit up called PBI, Place-Based Investigations. They got it from Cincinnati. And what this was supposed to do is go after your most violent or your most troublesome areas to clean up those neighborhoods. Because even in these poor neighborhoods, 80% of the people are great people. They really are.
Yeah.
They're just stuck in an area that they can't get out of.
True.
And I think the government resources could be used so much different to get these people on their feet and out. For instance, and this is off topic of this, but this is just my little rant on this kind of stuff. Because when you keep these people entrapped like this and enslaved with all the government assistance and their inability to get out, then it causes these problems to compound. And these guys are looking for ways out by selling drugs or robbing people or doing whatever they have to do to survive. I mean, it does become survival of the fittest in some of these areas. If you go in these areas at night, it's like a third world country. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. And that's the problem with most of the citizens. They don't live in those areas, so they don't know what it's like when you go after dark and there's gunshots and there's fights and it's just, you go, oh my goodness, this wasn't like this 2 hours ago. When the sun was up, It's just different. But I think they could go in and say you're on Section 8 or assistance. Instead of just constantly giving you money, why don't they, these women get trapped. Okay, here's your assistance, but if you make X amount of money, we're taking that assistance away. Why don't you let them succeed in their careers for 5 years and then slowly taper off the assistance while they're achieving this so they can get out of this environment?
Right, I agree.
I mean, then in the end, the government's saving money because you're not keeping these people on your payroll for their entire life, and you're helping the community by getting them out and getting them established. And then 15, 20 years from now, when they're having kids and their kids are having kids, you've got a totally different, it's like turning the pond over every year, and you get new stuff. But on this case, the gentrification, they came in and a guy from the mayor's office came in every single week and met with this unit, and all the bosses, all the assistant chiefs would come in, and they would come in, they would talk about what they needed to do to secure the rest of this. What were you doing? They would go and write on the whiteboard. I was never involved in any of those meetings, didn't care, didn't want to be. I had my own job. But they were there every single week. And when this all came down, the mayor was like, well, I don't know why they were there. I have no idea. And when that came up, the gentrification, he was like, well, I didn't know anything about that. But his name's on the emails.
Yeah.
He knew. This was a guy from his office conducting these meetings. A woman that he ended up having an affair with, allegedly, was the project manager for this thing. So there's a lot of things that are going on.
This sounds like what actually happened with the story is dirtier and bigger than people realize.
Yes.
I mean, when you mentioned that, I'm like, this sounds like there's probably real estate developers involved who go to the city and say, we want to turn a profit. So he says, we're going to clean up this neighborhood. You got it.
Well, it's funny. He uses a certain friend. I won't say his name, but he uses a certain friend. They already redeveloped one end of the town that was a real bad end of town. It's called Nulu now. And they've brought in restaurants and it's neat. It's kind of a yuppie area. But the same developer got all those bids, all those contracts, and he was the one that was going to get these. So there was a lot of under the table deals going on. And unfortunately, the police are always used as the pawns, like we were talking about earlier with the vaccine stuff, mandates enforcing that.
Yep.
If I can use the police who have the authority as my pawns to go do it, then I can look back and go, man, it wasn't me, it was the cops.
But these cops just need to say, I'm not going to.
100% they do. Yes, they do.
Well, I want to carry on the story though. So here you are now. You wake up in the hospital. Mm-hmm. Breonna Taylor has died. Did Kenneth get injured in any way?
No.
So you're what happens? You pass out on the ground?
No, I stayed alert, conscious the whole time. And I told people, and I've told people, because I've went around and talked to some people about critical incidents, and you're not required by law to give a statement right away, because in critical incidents, a lot of people, if you wait a few days, some things, you start remembering stuff that you've, for your own protection, you blocked out. But for some reason, when I woke up, it was like it was burned into my brain. And I say, I wish I would have at least, if I didn't give my official statement, I wish I would have recorded it that day, because it hadn't changed one bit. I mean, everything I said then, I said now. The only things I forgot I had put a ball cap on that night because I got rained on, and I'm real conscious about my hair, so I threw a hat on because it was all messed up. So I forgot about that. But other than that, it was like it was burned in me. So, but I waited 12 days to give a statement because I was in the hospital, then recovering on pain meds and all that. And so that became an issue because they were like, oh, it's a cover-up. Why do you wait so long to give a statement? I'm like, oh, my gosh, this is my statement. It hadn't changed. Every interview is the same. But so what did you ask me on that particularly?
No, just what happens next. So you're injured. You stay up all night. You're in the hospital. I'm wondering, what happens when you realize this was turning into a national story? There were was it riots are starting up or the news is picking it up?
So one of the first things I asked my wife, I was like, man, was anybody hurt? Because I didn't know. I didn't know if anybody had been shot in the apartment because, I was busy trying to tend to myself and stay alive. And they told me, yeah, it was a female. And I was like, crap. Because I knew when I came there, the taller one was probably a guy. I couldn't pick him out. But, you kind of knew. You can kind of tell body types. And I was like, man, because every cop's biggest fear is, or at least mine, I can't speak for everybody. My biggest fear in this career has always been, I don't want to accidentally shoot or kill the wrong person. I mean, that's just a thought that you're constantly playing, because there's been other times I could have been involved in shootings where people pulled guns, or I've been shot at in another warrant and didn't return fire because I couldn't see through what I was shooting at. And because the fear is always, I only want to do the right thing. I don't want to overstep these boundaries and in this position take somebody's life, because it's a pretty heavy burden.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I was like, oh my goodness. Because after Ferguson, every cop shooting that comes out now, we go, were they black or white? Not was it a good shoot or bad shoot, which should be all that matters. Color should not play any relevance to it, but it does. So ever since Michael Brown, that's the question, were they black or white? Well, I knew Breonna was black because I'd seen her picture prior to this. And so I was like, my goodness, this ain't going to be good. I just kind of knew it. And however, COVID, the nation shut down on March 13th also. That's when everything shut down. President was on every day. Our governor was on every day. So it kind of got pushed down. And I think that's what our mayor and our police chief counted on. Oh, okay, well, if this is the big story, this will go away. Something else will come up. And then Ahmaud Arbery happened. And Ben Crump was hired on Ahmaud Arbery. Well, then after that, one of the attorneys on Breonna Taylor's case for her mother knew Ben Crump. She had worked with him on a case. So she called him and said, hey, can you help us on this one? So he came into town, and then there had already been lies or misconceptions. And part of that was the police department's fault because they didn't share any information with Breonna Taylor's family either. So I understand their frustration. I get it. But then once he got on, it was a whole new animal, man. It was because he already had the national spotlight from Ahmaud Arbery. So then now Breonna Taylor's there. And so I could feel the tension in the city starting to creep up. You could feel it. And I started reaching out to people. I even reached out to our city council president, who used to be a police officer. He was my training officer in the academy. And I said, man, I texted him. I've still got it on my phone. I was like, here's all the lies they're saying, and I listed it as pages of text. And I said, here's what really happened. And I told exactly what I've told you guys. And I said, the mayor won't say it. What can we do? And he said, yeah, the mayor's refusing to say this stuff. I'll hold a press conference Monday and get it out. Never happened.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.